World Athletics said this week that its decision to ban transgender women from competing in elite women's sport was based on the inclusive need to protect the female category. But the organization's president, Sebastian Coe, says the movement to exclude transgender athletes going through male puberty is more than that. Coe says the move is about fairness rather than inclusivity, and comes after months of flooding by stakeholders that no other alternative is acceptable. "We had consultation a few months ago because we wanted to provoke discussion," Coe told worldwide audience. "It was really important that we get the input of all our stakeholders, including athletes, coaches and member federations. Female athletes, our coaches, our affiliate federations were absolutely clear at this point that there was absolutely no way we could include transgender athletes in elite competition in the female category," Coe said. Few athletes were willing to discuss this issue publicly, but some did so on social media. British runner and Olympian Emily Diamond, who won bronze in 400-meter relay at the 2016 Rio, said it's a big step towards fairness and preserving women's category. "I hope this becomes the rule now at all levels, not just in elite qualifying events." Olympics. Olympian and marathon runner Mara Yamauchi tweeted, "Good news. It's weird to celebrate something common sense. Under previous rules, trans women could compete in the female category as long as their testosterone levels were below 5 nanomoles per liter over a 1-year period. Critics and an emerging body of research suggest that male puberty triggers skeletal and cardiovascular advantages beyond testosterone levels that cannot be mitigated or reversed by suppressing testosterone. Athletes with male biology who fall into female category will run risk undermining integrity of that category and integrity competitions," Coe said. WATCH weightlifter Laurel Hubbard became the first trans athlete to compete in the Olympics. Weightlifter Laurel Hubbard becomes the first trans athlete to compete in the Olympics. Duration 6:03. Trans activist Susan Gapka joins Janella Massa from Canada tonight to talk about Laurel Hubbard's presence at this year's Olympics. Gapka says this milestone has the power to start important conversations about trans inclusion in high-level and recreational sports. World Athletics is the second major sport to move away from the testosterone model. Swimming's world governing body, World Aquatics, voted last June to ban trans women from elite competition if they have experienced any part of male puberty. World Rugby has adopted a similar policy. Longtime pushers for the ban say World Athletics' decision will have far-reaching impact in the sports world. World Athletics is one of best sporting organizations in the world, says Linda Blade, chair of Alberta Athletic Board. It's considered the main sport of the Olympic Games, so it has a huge impact. There are many sporting federations around the world that look to World Athletics for guidance on how to set an eligibility policy that is fair. Not only do you have the policy, but how do you implement it? Inclusivity and justice are not always compatible, Canadian Athletics CEO Matthew Gentes told the CBC that World Athletics has not consulted with the organization on this matter, adding that this week's decision was much stricter than expected. Gentes says Athletics Canada's current inclusion policy encourages grassroots participation at the local level, regardless of the category participants choose to define without restriction. But when it comes to events sanctioned by World Athletics, they will have to abide by the new rules. Inclusion and fairness don't always align 100% depending on the level of sport you're looking at, Gentes told CBC. We think it's important for people to be welcome in sport and have a place to participate, but we also think it's important to maintain the integrity of the female competitive categories. Watch FINA voted to restrict transgender participation in the elite women's pageant. FINA votes restrict transgender participation in elite women's competition. Time, 9:33 Canada. Tonight's Janella Massa, Skylar Baylor, the first trans athlete to compete in NCAA Division I, and Stuart Phillips, professor of kinesiology at McMaster University. And FINA's decision restrict transgender talked about. Women competing at the elite level. Chris Mosier is the founder of Trans Athlete, an educational resource on trans inclusion. He was also the first openly transgender man to compete in an Olympic trial against other men. He says the incredibly disappointing decision rejects fundamental principles of inclusion, fairness, and non-discrimination. Mosier says the policy will have a profound effect away from Olympic competitions in crowded stadiums. When powerful bodies like World Athletics decide, there's an invisible trickle-down effect, he says. Given all messages that young transgender people are hearing about belong, whether it's okay to be themselves, and they deserve the same opportunities as their peers to practice sport love. It's really uncomfortable to be accepted, Mosier told CBC. It's not just a few elite athletes who will be negatively impacted here, but young kids who can no longer see themselves as having an athletic career or pursuing their passions. Chris Mosier presents the Sports for Equality Award during the Beyond Sport Global Awards 2017 in New York City. Beyond that, Mosier says the ban addresses a problem that barely exists at elite levels of sport. There are currently no transgender athletes competing in elite international competitions. They chose to exclude a population of people who predicted some kind of problem, not in response to any real problem in sport. Trans women are underrepresented at all levels of the game. They even admit there aren't enough athletes to research about it. Mosier told CBC. By banning athletes who were required to participate in order to do research, they essentially eliminated the possibility of transgender athletes participate. We see an organization pursuing a policy that disproportionately affects a very small group of people. But it's not that simple, says Linda Blade of Athletics Alberta. Even the failure of person to win an Olympic gold medal, or different result in person's race due to clear ethical violation is problem. It's like saying that only 1 or 2 people are doping. We either have an eligibility limit, or we don't. WATCH cyclist Veronica Ivy talks about misconceptions about trans athletes. Where does sport stand in the struggle to include trans athletes? Duration 555 cyclist and trans athlete advocate Dr. Veronica Ivy talks about misconceptions about trans athletes and where to go from here. This debate is far from being resolved. World Athletics will set up a working group that will continue to explore the issue of transgender participation over the next 12 months. We're not saying no forever, Coe said. Athletes around the world will be watching closely. In terms of research and studies out there, they've been adjusting this for the past few years, and the line continues to move forward, says Gentis. They keep saying it's based on science and new research, and I'm hoping in 12 months maybe that will change again.